Go into the world and tell every man that you meet, there is a man on the cross.
A Catholic Take. What you need to know right now. A bold synthesis of inspiration and information. Keeping you up to date on the news and issues from a courageous Catholic perspective.
A Catholic Take with Joe McLean starts now.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McLean. Praise be to God. It is good to be on with you. I am live from San Antonio, Texas at the Sanctus Ranch. Yesterday, I got to spend the afternoon with Michael Hichborn, Lepanto Institute, and we were protesting outside of a gathering of what we might consider dissident priests who have gathered from all over the country to embrace some pretty heterodox ideas. And we're going to be getting into that today with Michael Hichborn on the team at 30 past the hour. He's going to be sharing some of the things that he's discovered that they were talking about during this multi-day conference here in San Antonio. Yesterday, it was all capped off by a mass said by the Archbishop of San Antonio, Garcia Sierra. So we're going to get into all of that today with you. Also on the program, we're going to be talking about the New York City mayoral race. Why does it matter to you? Maybe you don't live in New York City. Why does it make a difference to you or to me? Because I don't live there, that's for sure. But it is very, very interesting to see how we have a socialist Muslim potentially about to become the next mayor of New York City. Brent Haynes joins us at 14 past the hour to tell us why that is going to make a difference for the rest of our country and maybe have an impact around the world too. So we've got a lot to talk about today, live from Sanctus Ranch here in San Antonio. Plus, we're going to get into the after show. Now, I have to say right out of the gate, my internet is a wee bit on the janky side here, so I'm not sure how great my video is, but the audio should be good to go, and we're going to have a great show. So if you're listening on iCatholic Radio, or if you're listening on one of our radio apostolates, one of our radio stations, thanks for tuning in today. If you're hanging out with us on the live video stream, I beg your pardon in advance. But we will be doing an after show today, getting your takes on all of this. And you can be a part of that conversation by going to the stationofthecross.com/ACT. By the way, I just saw this morning that there's even the newest intelligence suggests, unlike the new intelligence yesterday that said that those facilities we bombed in Iran weren't as damaged as they are. Well, the newest of the new intelligence now says, yeah, we definitely destroyed them. So I guess depends on what day you tune in as to whether or not we did actual damage in Iran. But nonetheless, we have a lot to get to today. Let us pray. Let us pray for your intentions for the conversion of all of those heterodox priests who are embracing such errors to come back to Holy Mother Church. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thine intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my Mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, and now your saint of the day.
Saint Vigilius of Trent, pray for us. Vigilius was born to a Roman noble family in the mid-4th century. His mother and brothers are also venerated as saints. As a young man, Vigilius studied in Athens and became friends with St. John Chrysostom. When he returned to his family in Trent, Vigilius was acclaimed bishop by the people. St. Ambrose himself might have consecrated Vigilius, and he wrote the new bishop a long advisory letter that particularly emphasized opposition to usury and to the practice of Christians marrying heathens. Vigilius successfully converted the Arian heretics in his diocese and nearly eradicated the last remnants of paganism in the area. Several of his priests were martyred by the pagans, however, and soon Vigilius was rewarded for the holy envy that he felt for these saints. On this day in the year of our Lord 405, Vigilius celebrated Holy Mass near Lake Garda, amongst some of the last remaining pagans. When he cast their statue of Saturn into the river Sarka, the furious heathen mob stoned the bishop to death. Vigilius is regarded as the first saint to be canonized by an official papal declaration, and his relics rest in the cathedral dedicated to him in Trent. For more about this day and others in the Church's calendar, visit thestationofthecross.com/saints and seasons. Saint Vigilius of Trent, pray for us.
And now your headline news. Breitbart reports Trump praises NATO spending boost. Speaking at a press conference before he departed The Hague in the Netherlands to return to the United States, President Donald Trump saluted a highly productive NATO summit and particularly noted he came away with a changed perspective on European defense. Trump affirmed his commitment to Article 5, the NATO Mutual Defense Treaty Clause that states an attack on one is an attack on all. While members had been expected to spend 2% or more of their GDP on defense, that number has now doubled to 5%. LifeSite News reports German police arrest citizens for hate speech as migrant crime hits new high. German authorities conducted more than 180 operations across the country, targeting individuals accused of spreading hate and incitement online, most of them tied to the far right. The Federal Criminal Police Office announced that more than 65 search warrants were executed. The Day of Action Against Hate and Incitement Online is the 12th such operation aimed at curbing illegal speech on the internet. But meanwhile, separate figures recently reported show that violent crime in Germany, including rape and sexual assault, has reached its highest levels since 2007. And over a third of the suspects, it noted, were non-German nationals. And Catholic Vote reports Pope Leo speaks forcefully against arrogance of war. Pope Leo yesterday decried the violence that has occurred in Iran, Israel, and Palestine, calling on the world to reject arrogance and revenge and instead resolutely choose the path of dialogue, diplomacy, and peace. And those are your headline news. The gospel today comes to us very appropriately, I would argue, from Matthew chapter 7, verses 21 through 29. Jesus said to his disciples, "Not everyone that saith to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doth the will of my Father who is in heaven, he shall enter into the kingdom of heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have not we prophesied in thy name, and cast out devils in thy name, and done many miracles in thy name? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you that work iniquity. Everyone therefore that heareth these words, my words, and doth them, shall be likened to a wise man that built his house upon a rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and they beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded on a rock. And everyone that heareth these my words, and doth them not, shall be like a foolish man that built his house upon the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and they beat upon that house, and it fell. And great was the fall thereof. And it came to pass, when Jesus had fully ended these words, the people were in admiration at his doctrine. For he was teaching them as one having power, and not as the scribes and the Pharisees. The Gospel of the Lord. Laus tibi Christi. The Ignatius Catholic Study Bible would say false prophets, these so-called prophets, appear harmless, yet their ministry breeds error, division, and immorality. The distinction between true and false prophets is rooted in the Old Testament. Deuteronomy 18, verses 20 through 22. Jeremiah 14, verses 13 through 16. And again, apropos, because we'll be talking about a group of ministers, a group of priests who embrace heterodox ideas, pushing heterodox ideas, want to reinvent the church. They hate what the church has always stood for, and they want to reinvent it to something new, something novel, something evil. We'll be talking about that with Hichborn coming up in just a little while. The commentary goes on that day, the day of judgment, Jesus is portrayed as the divine judge. God's sanctifying grace enlivens the soul, making it fit for heaven. It is the grace of divine sonship. It is manifested through conformity with the Father's will by knowing and obeying Jesus. In Catholic tradition, sanctifying grace is distinct from graces that are manifest through miraculous works such as prophecy and exorcism. These charismatic graces are also heavenly gifts, but are not conclusive evidence of one's personal sanctity or the membership in the family. Father Haydock would write, "But the strongest faith without the works of justice will not be available to salvation." I think that bears repeating. The strongest faith without the works of justice will not be available to salvation. Many who have the Lord continually in their mouths, but care little about putting on the Lord or penetrating themselves with his true spirit, will find their presumption and the false consciences they have made to themselves woefully disappointed. You got to be both the hearers of the word and the doers of the word. You've got to talk the talk and walk the walk. It's both and, it is not either or. We must do what we can while we have time to do it for the glory of God and for the salvation of souls. We must repent. We must fast. We must beg God for mercy. We do so through the sacraments, do we not? Do we not go to confession and make our plea unto the Lord, accusing ourselves of our own crimes that he might give us his mercy, because the wellspring of mercy is deep, rich, infinite, and amazing, but only if we make access to it. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Did you know you can help evangelize simply by using your cell phone? The Station of the Cross is partnering with iCatholic Mobile, America's only Catholic mobile phone company. When you join iCatholic Mobile, a portion of every dollar will support our programming. Plus, you'll enjoy great service with iCatholic Unlimited 5G data, text, and talk. With iCatholic Mobile, you can stay connected with family and friends while also spreading the truth of Jesus Christ with clarity and charity. Join today at iCatholicMobile.com.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain. Praise be to God. Coming up at 30 past the hour, Michael Hichborn from Lepanto Institute, lepantoin.org is going to be on the team. He has been down here in San Antonio hosting a protest, a rally, rosary rally, trying to, stand in front of this group of AUSCP priests from all over the country, and ladies too, by the way, and because they hold heterodox positions. And we're going to be getting into what they've been talking about and what he's been doing to raise awareness and to really try to uncover, let's just say, the dirty little secrets, and I do mean dirty, that they've been promoting within their own ranks this week here in San Antonio. That is coming up at 30 past the hour. But there are lots of stories in the news that are of great concern to us, and I'm sure they are to you as well. And here's one that probably should concern most Americans, but I would argue most Americans probably aren't paying all that much attention to who the mayor in New York City is. I'm going to be linking to some articles today, but there is apparently a real potential that we're about to see a mayor in New York City who is both an active, and I dare I say militant Muslim, and a socialist. Joining us to talk about this is friend of the show, Brent Haynes. Good morning to you, Brent. Thanks for being on the team.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, everyone.
All right, Brent. So the $64,000 question. Why should anybody care about who the mayor is in New York City? It's not as though we have great mayors there, generally speaking. So if we don't live there, what's the big deal?
The big deal, Joe, is that the position of mayor of New York City is, by virtue of New York City's size and prestige, a position of political prominence in the United States, and especially because it's almost always a Democrat. It's been a Democrat every time since Mayor Rudolph Giuliani was mayor. It's always a position of prominence in the Democrat Party. The mayor of New York automatically becomes a powerful figure in the Democrat Party, some more so than others, and some go downhill pretty quickly after they're elected because of their poor performance in office. We've seen that a few times. but the mayor of New York City is automatically, if he or she has any political skill at all, is automatically, considered a future candidate for senator or governor of New York, if not both. And once you're senator or governor of New York, you're an easy potential candidate for president. This is a significant position. It's one of the major power centers in the Democrat Party. The significance of Zohran Mamdani winning the Democrat primary, and it's not officially over yet. They have ranked choice voting in New York. Just another terrible anti-American idea. That's another topic. But he won 40%.
Well, can you briefly summarize what that means? What is this ranked choice voting? Most people are unaware of this. So what exactly is that?
Voters go into the voting booth. And remember the idea of one man, one vote? Yeah, that's not it. It's like one man, one woman, one vote for every candidate. So here they had 11 candidates for mayor in Democrat on the Democrat ballot in New York. So every voter went in. I didn't necessarily complete the process, but every voter went in and ranked their candidates 1 through 11, which is why you don't officially know who won until they get done sorting through it. So, the person who gets the most number one votes doesn't necessarily win. Now, in this case, he will. Mamdani easily beat former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who, remember, left office in disgrace for sexual harassment and is responsible for hundreds or thousands of deaths during COVID because he forced nursing homes and retirement communities to take back in elderly Americans who were already infected with COVID, thereby infecting others. But Mamdani got 44% of the vote, approximately. He easily beat Cuomo and the others. He's going to be the winner. And it's not a guarantee. Maybe New Yorkers will come to their sense, but he is probably, the next mayor of New York, just going by history, especially since Rudolph Giuliani. But why is this important? Why should people outside New York care? Because, Joe, this signals that the balance of power in the Democrat Party has shifted decisively from the traditional old-line Democrats to the radical progressive wing of the party. Now, look, the traditional old-line Democrats were liberal enough. They were hardly moderate, but they weren't radical. Remember when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the other members of the so-called squad came into power? They got attention, not just because they were loud and they advocated extreme political positions, but they got attention because they were not just new, but they were somewhat disruptive, and they were a minority group within the party, and Nancy Pelosi had some difficulty reining them in on occasion. But now, look at where we are today. Consider Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's influence today. Consider the difference between Nancy Pelosi's leadership of the Democrats as Speaker of the House and that of Hakeem Jeffries, who can barely hold it together and doesn't have nearly as much influence and power as she did. And here's the bigger point. This is what people should be concerned about. Too much of our country is not just drifting to the left. It's racing headlong into the most radical positions possible. We have a two-party system in the United States. To move the entire country to the right, to use the overly simplistic left-right spectrum, but to get back to what a lot of us consider traditional common-sense values in this country, you have to move both parties to the right. Think of it this way. As long as there is a vibrant, successful, radical wing of the Democrat Party, we will continually be fighting to prevent schools from encouraging transgender transitions of children without the knowledge of their parents. We will continually be fighting to stop the spread. We will continually be fighting to stop the spread and re-legalization of abortion. We will be continually fighting the advocacy of the idea that traditional patriotic Christians are Christian nationalists. Remember the FBI's investigation of the Latin Mass Catholics? It's
sure, of course,
it's incredibly significant when one of the two major parties just moves farther and farther to the left. So who is Zohran Mamdani? Well, he's a 33-year-old New York politician. He is a failed rapper. His mother got him a role in a Disney movie. He's a failed rapper. He's born in Uganda. comes to the United States. He's a failed rapper. His mother got him a role in a Disney movie. He became a candidate for the New York State Legislature in 2019 and was elected in 2020. So he became a full-time politician at the age of 28. He's effectively never worked a real job in his life. And notice,
come on, Brent. Rapping is not an easy task. It's very taxing, the whole rapping industry. It takes a lot of energy to rap. So clearly he's qualified for office.
And apparently he wasn't able to do it well enough to be successful. But notice how many of these politicians on the left go into government. They think they know how to manage our lives with government rules and regulations and laws, telling us what to do with our children, wanting to take more of our money, trying to set up all of these government programs. And yet, how many of them have never really worked a real job in their life? You know, he worked as a foreclosure counselor at one point. And I feel bad for people dealing with foreclosure. But, you know, he did that very briefly, and that's not exactly a job that gives you experience in managing large organizations or people or budgets. It reminds me of Barack Obama's work as a so-called community organizer before he became a lawyer. So what else about Mamdani? He's a socialist. He's a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. He supports defunding the police. Joe, he wants to defund the police and fund social services. So when you need a cop, you get a social worker. He opposes cash bail, which means, of course, that criminal defendants go free right after they are arrested. You know, wow. Cops arrest people, and they're frequently out on the street even before the police officer can finish the paperwork. He wants government-owned supermarkets in New York City. Government-owned supermarkets.
Because government food is so good.
You know, because the government does such a good job managing organizations like the Department of Motor Vehicles or the U.S. Postal Service, right? And yes, U.S. Postal Service technically an independent entity, the same principle. By the way, Joe, you know who else had government-owned supermarkets? Joseph Stalin. That worked out real well.
Yeah. I grew up on government supermarkets, but we had to shop at the base PX. You know, the government cheese is not good cheese. I don't know if anybody knows that, but not quality stuff.
Well, they'll have to get ready for it in New York if he has his way. He wants to – they have rent control in New York, which is a problem in itself. He ran entire ads broadcasting the fact that he's going to freeze rent for the rent control departments in New York. That's what you need to do to encourage landlords to put more units on the market and to ease the housing crisis. Good luck getting repairs done in your apartment if you live in a rent-controlled, rent-frozen apartment in New York, because landlords not going to put any money into an apartment he can't make a profit on.
We call those projects, and generally speaking, they're not lovely places to live, and most people wish they could live somewhere else that have to live in places like that. So it doesn't seem like it's providing a great solution here. But here's the real question I have for you, Brent, on this, because some are saying that what they fear in a Mamdani candidate becoming the next mayor of New York City is that New York City is going to become like London, become a city in which you have a two-tier justice system. Some are very concerned that Mamdani, being a Muslim, he will favor the Muslim citizens of New York City over everyone else there, and there'll be a two-tiered system, especially in a time now where, according to, I think it was Pam Bondi the other day, that we're now very concerned about sleeper cells in the United States after our attack on Iran this last week. So how do you see that from that perspective? Do you think Mamdani will instigate a two-tier justice system in New York City like they have in London?
Well, look at Alvin Bragg, who's already the Manhattan DA. Don't they already have a two-tier justice system in New York? Remember the bodega owner who was being attacked by the young violent criminal? And then finally the bodega owner grabbed a knife and stabbed the criminal, and it all caught on video. And what did Alvin Bragg do? He was going to charge him until finally there was such a massive protest against it. He finally released the man. You know, there's arguably already a two-tier justice system in New York, to the extent there's any justice system at all. When you have no cash bail, when you have a revolving door in the criminal justice system. When you don't hold criminals accountable, how do you have any system of justice? And by the way, why is he talking about opening government supermarkets in New York? Because the other supermarkets can't stay in business. Think of all of the drugstores, all the pharmacies, and all the other stores, the retail stores that have to put something simple behind plastic and glass barriers. To get a bottle of aspirin, you have to wait forever for a clerk to come and unlock the cabinet so you can get that. That's why Walgreens left San Francisco. That's why supermarkets will leave in New York. They leave because they can't make any money, and somehow he's going to do it. He says, well, they won't pay taxes. They won't pay rent. He wants free city buses. He wants universal child care. And look, Joe, here's the thing. Think of the drift among the Democrat Party. Senator John Fetterman from Pennsylvania, a liberal Democrat, comes out and takes a common sense position on issues. And what happens? He gets castigated. He gets castigated by the members of the Democrat Party and by the media. And Dean Phillips, do you remember him? Probably not. Most people don't. Former Democrat congressman from Minnesota who ran for president. It's even worse for Dean Phillips. We just ignore him. At least when they're criticizing you, their name is in the news and maybe get a chance to speak back.
Brent Haynes, we're out of time.
That's bad for the whole country.
Thanks for your input, Brent. We got to go. We'll be back in 2 minutes with Michael Hichborn and more breaking news. Don't go anywhere. Share us with a friend. God love you. Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain, and here are your headline news. Just the News reports L.A. County Vice Mayor allegedly told gangs to defend their territory against ICE. Cuddy, California Vice Mayor Cynthia Gonzalez posted a video allegedly on social media late last week in which she encouraged two gangs to protect their territory from ICE. She reportedly deleted the video shortly after posting it. Gonzalez was apparently visited by the FBI at her home after posting this video and is now allegedly under federal investigation. The Blaze reports FBI launches criminal probe into 3 children's hospitals over child sex changes. The FBI has launched criminal probes into 3 of the apparent worst offenders in the Stop the Harm database created by the medical advocacy group Do No Harm: Boston Children's Hospital, Children's Hospital of Colorado, and Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. The database identifies hospitals and medical facilities around the country that are subjecting vulnerable children to sex change mutilations and sterilizing chemical treatments. And Catholic Vote reports biggest child trafficking bust in U.S. history. In what officials are calling the largest child rescue operation in U.S. history, law enforcement recovered 60 missing children and arrested 8 suspects linked to child trafficking in Central Florida. The success of the Operation Dragon Eye is a testament to what is possible when agencies unite with a shared mission to protect children. And those are your headline news. Good news indeed. Praise be to God. Yesterday, I had the great privilege. I'm here in San Antonio, Texas. I'm here at the Sanctus Ranch hanging out this morning. Praise be to God. But yesterday, I had the wonderful opportunity to hang out with Michael Hichborn, who is here in San Antonio this week because of the AUSCP. It's an association of priests, and they gather every year for a conference. And boy, oh boy, this is really a troubling group, to say it mildly. Joining us this morning to discuss it is friend of the program, Michael Hichborn. Michael, good morning to you. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Joe. Good to be here.
Praise be to God. It's great to hang out with you, Michael, yesterday. Tell us, okay, first of all, we've talked about it once already. I think it was last week we had you on to talk about it. But recap for us who the AUSCP is, and then, of course, what like their party platform, so to speak. And then I want to know, what were they talking about this week at their conference?
Yeah. So the Association of U.S. Catholic Priests was formed in 2011. They're basically the last vestiges of the Call to Action Conference of 1976. There's not a single dark hair among them. These men are mostly 80 plus years old. But that's while that, in one sense, is a consoling thought, considering these people are pushing the most heterodox views, and they want to change the church in such a way that she would be completely unrecognizable. They want to level the playing field so that basically the church has no real laity or no real clergy. It's just a community of believers. They want to elevate women to the clerical state. They are pushing LGBTQ ideologies throughout the church. In fact, I have here some very interesting swag that I think that people would find interesting. A rainbow button here in the form of a cross that says "Love is love." I've got a little sticker that says, "Who would Jesus exclude?" We've got something put out by Future Church, one of their vendors, and it says, "Future Church celebrates pride, queer theology, ministry, and joy." And New Ways Ministry, Sister Janine Gramick is here. So they are pushing a hard LGBT ideology. They want women's ordination. In fact, yesterday, as we were protesting, I happened to run into Father Frederick Daly, who is the priest that held that gay mass up in Syracuse, New York. And he saw my sign that said, AUSCP wants to ordain women. And he said, "We sure do." And I said, "Do what?" I said, "Ordain women?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "To the priesthood?" He goes, "To the diaconate, to the priesthood, as bishops, as pope."
Wow. Let that sink in for a second. They are not even hiding it, Michael. They're not ashamed of what they believe in, are they?
No, they're not ashamed of it at all, and they're not hiding the football. And they've got a lot of support from bishops all across the country. Cardinal Supich has been to speak at their conferences. They've had Archbishop Wilton Gregory or Cardinal Gregory. They've had Cardinal McElroy. Here currently is Archbishop John Wester, who is the Archbishop of Santa Fe, New Mexico. He's the Episcopal moderator for the AUSCP. And they have Bishop John Stowe, who is a member. He's currently here. So, I see these men, and they're all walking around in Hawaiian shirts and pink polos, and it's,
yeah. It's unbelievable. They outwardly embrace heterodox ideas, and yet they got a warm welcome from the Archbishop here in San Antonio, who said the closing mass for them. How are we, the lay folks, supposed to interpret that?
Well, I think you're supposed to interpret it as support. Many of these bishops and cardinals that support the AUSCP have shut out traditional Catholics. They openly attack Catholics that are trying to hold to the traditional morals and the traditional teachings of the church. Cardinal Supich is notorious for shutting down pro-life activities in the dioceses that he has run. So, when they openly attack traditional Catholics and then they go and embrace these LGBT promoting, women's ordination promoting priests, supporting them and even speaking at their conferences, I think that we're supposed to take from that the fact that these cardinals and bishops also agree with their agenda to completely upend and pervert the church.
That's a tragedy that I think is broken the hearts of many in the church, which is why we're seeing people leave the Holy Mother Church over these issues. So we're hoping and praying that we'll see some resolution in the Leonine Pontificate now. But so far, there's been no crackdown of any of this. In fact, this is something you said last night when we were giving talks here at the Sanctus Ranch, that let's go back to the sister at New Ways Ministry. She seems pretty confident that she has the ear of Pope Leo. Did she not?
Yeah, she was heard in one of the conferences. I was told that she stood up when they were saying, "Well, we need to make sure that we get in touch with Pope Leo the 14th and try and have make him aware of some of the things that we're trying to do and what we wanted to accomplish." And Sister Janine Gramick smirked and said, oh, we are. So she's indicated that she herself is in some sort of communication with Pope Leo.
And honestly, I do hope she's in communication with Pope Leo, but I hope it's to the point where Pope Leo says, listen, you guys got to get your act together. You need to get back onto the team. You gotta stop with all these heterodox ideas. So I'm hoping and praying that Leo is the one guy that might talk some sense into these people, because clearly they are off the reservation. Just look. You went through these documents, this brochure, their program. We talked a little bit of it last time you were on. Like, these ideas are they're not just like inclusive or embracing people who struggle with same-sex attraction or gender identity issues. It's not just sort of, it's way more nefarious than that. They want this to become normal. They want the perverted sexual practice to become normalized. That is a level of nefarious that I think most Catholics are unaware of.
Absolutely. I mean, the topic of this particular conference is human sexuality and pastoral concerns, whatever that means. But you have to understand that a good number of the men that are here, the priests that are here, are themselves homosexual. I have heard them admit as much. I've heard them admit to, some of the things I can't say right now, but it's just, what I can say is that the level of depravity in the mindset of these men, as they are looking at the nature of human sexuality, they talk openly about transsexuality, and they even question whether, yesterday, while we were protesting, while we were praying the rosary, there was one priest that tried arguing with me, saying that, well, did God really make man and woman only? He said, well, what about the science that says that there are people who are both? Or the science that says that we're not ever really fully just man or just woman, as if there's a valid question to be had there. It's a horrifying thought, but they're questioning even the most basic ontological understanding of human nature. And when you start questioning that kind of thing, well, where are the limits? You're going to open up a can of worms that questions even the most basic understanding of what the church is. So if you look at transsexuality in the human person and you try to understand what that means for the Catholic Church, what you will see is that they are trying to transition the church, so to speak, in the same way that they would like to see the transitioning of human sexuality.
Yeah. Tell me about Rolheiser. Who is this guy, and what is he talking about at this event?
So Rolheiser is he's an OMI priest, and I don't know if you know much about their particular charism, but he has this understanding of human sexuality that is so ambiguous that it's open to a lot of interpretation. But the problem is that he almost speaks out of both sides of his mouth. So he'll say one thing, and it's very clear that, well, that's a very heterodox view of understanding the church or human sexuality. And then he goes and he'll say, but, that's not what that is. It's almost like he tries to make a clarification that's not a clarification. We have an article on our website, and what we've found is that across the extensive body of his writings, he has described celibacy as a loneliness that God himself has damned, which subtly encourages emotionally intense homosexual friendships as compensation for this supposed deficiency. He suggested that AIDS should be viewed as a message from God, while refusing to name homosexual behavior as intrinsically sinful or call for repentance. And he does this a lot. Like, he'll say that he disagrees with some particular vice or and it sounds, it sounds orthodox on the face of it, but he'll never call it a sin. And he never calls out people from committing these sins. So there's no repentance to be had. He relegated homosexuality to a list of private moral issues alongside liturgical rubrics, treating it like a manner of debate rather than as a matter of grave sin. So you see this problem in the way that he presents his theological understanding of things, and I can tell you, he's confused a lot of these priests who are already so very, very confused, and it's making things so much worse.
We're almost at a break here. Michael Hichborn from Lepanto Institute's our guest. We're talking about the AUSCP and their meeting this week here in San Antonio, Texas. And Michael, you just reminded me as we head off to break here, I listened to a behavioral expert once talk about how he would interrogate people. He worked for the military. And if you had two people, one of them is guilty, he said he would ask both, what do you think I should do to the guilty party? And the one who's not guilty will always say, punish him. And the one who is guilty would always say, oh, you should go light on them. And this is what he would do for his children, too, to figure out who took the cookie from the cookie jar. It seems to me a lot of these priests are all saying, oh, we need to go light and easy on these people who are same-sex attracted. Might it be because they, in fact, are guilty and they're struggling with it within themselves? That's the next question coming up in 2 minutes from now with Michael Hichborn from Lepanto Institute, lepantoin.org. Are we looking at a wave of homosexual clergy? Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain. It is great to be on with you. Praise be to Jesus, live from Sanctus Ranch in San Antonio, Texas. I was hanging out yesterday with Michael Hichborn and his efforts to protest, raise awareness, and pray for an association of dissident priests here in meeting this week in San Antonio, the AUSCP. We're going to be linking to two articles from lepantoin.org in the show notes today, but Michael Hichborn is our guest. Michael, welcome back to the show. We were talking just before the break, and you kind of reminded me what this behavioral expert, once said. I was watching one of his videos about how you figure out who the guilty party is, because the one who wants to go as lenient as possible on the guilty generally is the guilty party. And it seems to me like when you are discussing some of the things that they're discussing at this conference, or they've talked about in previous conferences, or the materials that you've collected, it seems like there is this deep-seated effort to try to say, hey, these people with same-sex attractions, they're okay, they're fine. In other words, to tamp down our what they would consider our heavy-handed approach towards these people who struggle with these things. Could it be it's because many of these priests themselves are struggling with same-sex attraction? What say you, Michael Hichborn?
I think that's very likely. The kind of things that we see here, it's not uncommon for me to see some sort of flirtation going on, whether it's between two priests sitting at a table together, or you don't want to assume anything, but I'll tell you, it's pretty overt sometimes. And the other day I was sitting at a table by myself, and I was just enjoying a drink. I wasn't locking eyes with anybody. And one of the AUSCP members took a look at me, and he kept staring at me, and I wasn't looking up. I knew he was looking at me, and I just kind of kept my head down. And finally I glanced up, and he gave me a little smile, a little pursed-lipped smile, and it was kind of creepy. And he just started talking to me, and he was very pleasant. But throughout the course of the conversation, he started dropping little hints, just little mentions about gay this, or we need to see more acceptance of this kind of behavior, the men with men and that kind of stuff. But it wasn't ever really overt. It was just kind of these little hints that he would drop. And I wasn't really committal in the conversation. He asked my name. I gave him my first name. He asked what I was in town for. I said, well, I've got family in the area, just being very vague. And he just kept talking and talking. And so then he said, I'd like to sit down with you. And I said, okay, there's a chair here. So he goes up, he gets a drink, he loops his way back, he sits down, he starts talking some more, and he's just very engaging. And he saw me the next day, in fact, said one of the priests said, well, you were just drinking with the enemy. So, and I said, I just started laughing, and I said, the enemy, I said, you don't understand. I'm here to pray for you. I'm here to pray for you because I know exactly what this organization is doing, and I know what you're up to, and I'm trying to help you to see the truth, for one thing, but also to help you save your soul, because what you are doing is damnable activity. And he, it was very affable, but they just don't get it. They don't get it. And their whole approach to everything just feels slimy. You hear the way they talk and the way they look, and it's very slimy, and it's pretty awful.
Yeah, and it's a big thing you were talking about last night in this speech that you gave here at Sanctus Ranch. By the way, hats off to you, to Jesse Romero, to Dan Seveny and the team for putting on the event last night. It was a great time for all. But they just want to recreate. They want a church made in their image and likeness, and it's not just homosexuality that's at the center of their ideology. It's female ordination and a bunch of other stuff, right?
Yes. Yeah, women's ordination. And like I said, Father Frederick Daly said he would like to see women's ordination all the way up to the papacy.
Don't they realize that as soon as they open that can of worms, I mean, why should he be a priest? They should just all, forfeit their office right now to every woman. Why do they sit and talk about this stuff and still remain, a father? Why don't they just quit and walk away if they want someone else to do the job?
Well, I think a lot of it boils down to the fact that they hate the church and they hate themselves. It doesn't make any sense to denigrate your own vocation unless you actually hate your vocation. And when you read through their documents, they have a whole document on the nature of the priesthood. They deny the ontological change that takes place with ordination. So they deny that they are even consecrated or set apart in a particular way with an indelible mark on their souls. If you don't want to believe that you actually have a transformation at the point of ordination, well, why are you trying to change our understanding of human nature so that you can say that a man can transition to a woman? So they want to deny the spiritual realities and change things in a physical sense because, well, for them, it's all about externals. It's all for show. And again, you start to think about the fact that they hate themselves, they hate their vocation, and I think it's a self-loathing that is deep-seated. A lot of these men seem to have an arrested development, as if they were traumatized at some point in their youth, and they continue to live out that trauma with their promotion and activities with homosexuality or bad sexual identity, and that translates into bad theology and an improper understanding of the church, and so they hate it all. They hate all the good, the true, and the beautiful. And I said to somebody last night, because they were asking me, why don't they just think about things and work their way through it? I said, when you see a homeless man who hasn't taken a shower in years, and he smells like urine, and he walks into a room and everybody recoils at the smell and the look, and he just kind of walks in and says, what? He can't smell himself. And in the same respect, these men can't smell themselves. They can't smell the putrid odor of their bad theology.
Are they the last dying vestige of the hippie revolution, or is there another wave coming?
I think that they are the majority of the hippie revolution, the generation. You have to be careful about the ones that they make. It's like a vampire. It takes a vampire to make a vampire, or a zombie. It takes a zombie to make a zombie. In the same respect, it takes these wicked old men to make other wicked old men. And I think that they are dying out. They recognize that they are aging out. In fact, on their website, they had an e-bulletin back in April where they said that they recognize that they are getting older and they need to start replacing their numbers with younger priests. So they offered free memberships to newly ordained priests. In fact, some of the newsletters that they put out said, if you can't make it to the AUSCP assembly this year, why not send a younger priest? So they're trying to rebuild their numbers through the youth, and I don't think that they're succeeding. Praise be to God.
Praise be to God. Yeah, yesterday, I don't know that I saw any young priest. I thought I saw some folks local to the cathedral, but otherwise, I don't know that I saw any young priests in the group. They were all fairly old, so I was somewhat encouraged by that and prayerful that the next generation will be more orthodox, to say the least. Michael Hichborn, always great to have you on. You are an inspiration, sir, and very bold and courageous. Thank you for all you do. LepantoIN.org is the website. You should check it out and read those articles for the details and the receipts. LepantoIN.org. We're going to go into the after show for a little bit anyway, here live from Sanctus Ranch. Even with the janky internet, I'll be reading some of your commentary. God bless you and God love you. We'll see you back tomorrow, back in the studio, back in Houston, Texas. Until then, share it with a friend. God love you.
Catholic radio has just been a lifesaver for me. I still listen to it every day. I start my day with it. I listen to it all day long as much as I can. I am very grateful for it.
It's just an amazing thing to have, as I am new to Catholicism. Obviously, it's not only helping me, but it's helping so many other people on their walk.
Thank you. God bless you for iCatholic Radio. It has changed my life.
Donate today at thestationofthecross.com.
And we're back. Welcome to the after show, everyone. And just before we get into things, I had a thought that struck me about trying to
like
replace
water bottle striking a pope or something.
About the what's that, Joe? What?
No, nothing.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I couldn't tell if you were like not hearing me or what, just because of the echo. But I was
trying to make a joke, but the internet is not cooperative.
Yeah. I had a thought about the whole replacing their numbers issue. And I think part of the issue, like, obviously these older generations, they can still have these kind of, I guess, protégés is the most polite way to put it. You know, these people, they try and get involved in this, structure. But part of the issue is that the amount of damage that's been done to the church has damaged its prestige.
Yeah.
In such a way that in their day, it was kind of still a big deal, to be part of the Catholic Church, to be part of that influence, to have a, they probably think of it more as a career than as a vocation, but to have a career there, that sort of thing. That prestige, that status is completely gone in this day and age. So young people, even if they have these ideas of radical reform, quote unquote, really destruction, and these younger leftists, progressives don't have that same sort of, infiltration idea. They just kind of want to see it go away. We're busy out here, marching in the streets with BLM and Antifa or whatever. Like, we don't really have an interest in this long game of infiltrating the church. And so because obviously the church is protected by the Holy Spirit, because not everything has been, completely subverted in the church, we're not seeing that the same amount of long-term success that we see in, say, like look at how the political parties in the U.S. have been, almost completely infiltrated and taken over, because those still have prestige, those still have status in society. Even for all the bad stuff that they do, it's still meaningful to enter that and take it over, type of thing. Like, you're still taking part in society. The Catholic Church has almost been sidelined because of all the scandal and because of all the destruction and just the plain, apostatizing of people, where it's no longer as big of a deal, for, the Catholic Church to have, a position of, influence or power like that. It just doesn't happen as much. So it's an interesting kind of side effect of what all of these, these infiltrators and bad actors and bad apples in the church have done is that it's harder to recruit young people because there aren't so many young people going in. And a lot of the, maybe not the majority, who like the numbers are hard to tell, even with polls and anonymous, surveys. But the majority of people who still want to be involved in the church still care about the church as the church and for what the church is, even if it's kind of a watered down version. They're not looking to change it radically in the way that these older generations, examples do. I think that's kind of
absolutely.
The case.
So I want to read to you. This is a quote. Are you familiar with Blessed Francisco Palau?
The name sounds familiar, but
so Blessed Francisco Palau was a mystic in the 1800s. He had mystical visions of the church herself, the person of the church, and he had conversations with her, and he wrote about it. He wrote a book titled "My Relations with the Church." I want to read to you this excerpt. Now, one of the things in his writing, whenever he wrote about his interactions with the church, he wrote it in the third person, which was kind of odd. But this is what he wrote. He said, so he was speaking to the person of the church, and she said, "Do you want to know the cause of my pain, the cause of my distress?"
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Yes." And she said this: "All priests on the day of their ordination are handed over to me by my heavenly Father. The priest, whatever be his rank or dignity, from the day of his ordination is my spouse, and the ceremony is celebrated in due manner before the public. It could be that the husband or spouse, in spite of the marriage bonds, may become unfaithful, adulterous, impure, and so unworthy of his wife. A priest, in spite of the sacred bonds of priesthood by which he is bound to me, may become unfaithful, adulterous, and a bad spouse. Well then, I am a virgin. I have always been and will be, and the one who unites himself to me in spiritual matrimony is so pure, and purer as I embrace him, is more chaste, with firmness and fortitude as he loves me, and no one is worthy of me except the one who comes to the priesthood with pure intentions. Do you want to know the cause of my sorrow?" She led him to the peak of the mountain, and with the light shining upon the plains, I saw a great multitude of false lovers, who, coming to the priesthood with devious intentions, were in the power of Asmodeus. And she said to me, "These married me through the bonds of the priesthood, and loved not me, but the benefice, stipends, and temporalities. Mm-hmm. That is their beloved thing. By the priesthood I am their spouse, but they are adulterers because they have united themselves to the benefice and not to me. Some love the dignity and glory which they see surrounds me. Others love my material riches. Others the idleness, laziness, and their own comfort. And they began their career with these intentions and arrived at possessing a glorious situation. None of these know me, and I do not know them. Neither do they love me. Oh, if all the priests knew the church, if they knew me, if they loved me. All of these were consigned to the power of Asmodeus on the very day of the wedding, the day of ordination or of taking possession of the priestly living. The devil seized their souls, and dead to me they live only for themselves, for the world, and for the devil." And what's interesting about this particular passage, Asmodeus happens to be the demon who is, Father Ripperger says, that Asmodeus is the demon that is related to homosexuality.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's the fruit of treating the church as a career path. You're a part of this club, that sort of thing. I mean, you see it even from priests who are, ostensibly, orthodox, basically orthodox. They if you quiz them on any matters of the church, they would without any hint of subterfuge, and dishonesty, they would say, "Oh yeah, I believe that. Oh yeah, I believe that." but they don't really take it seriously as a vocation. They're in a career, basically. That's how they treat it. They're not above that level. You still see that. But, we have seen that in the past. It's not something that can't be, overcome by holy priests and holy bishops. But it's just so widespread now. It's just, and again, but this is the thing, is like when the church is in dire straits, the people who cling to it are usually people who still take the church seriously. And that's, again, why they're having trouble recruiting new young priests to join their heterodox, insanity club here. They're having trouble because these younger priests are like, that's not why I became a priest. It's a different situation. It's still a bad, dire situation, but it's encouraging to see these failures, these cracks in the facade of them having taken over.
Yep.
Sleeping Lioness says, just teach real Catholicism in schools and kids will start to take interest. That's well said. I would say that's part of what Socialist Ranch is trying to do. But there's a reason why the AUSCP could meet in San Antonio at all, and that's because the bishop here supports them in what they do. And because he supports them in what they do, I think it's obvious what he won't be supporting: Orthodox, efforts to bring about a revival in the tradition and patrimony of Holy Mother Church. And there's been a real battle here in this diocese over those issues, especially as it relates to Sanctus Ranch. So pray for them, because they're trying to build a school. They're trying to provide classical Catholic education, giving parents another option to put their kids in a school that's going to help them become, better Catholics versus just more secular citizens. And it's an uphill battle. Dan told me some things yesterday. I'm not sure I'm that privileged to share them, so I don't think I will. But he shared with me some things about that battle that are just heartbreaking. No one gets up and goes, "Golly gee whiz, my biggest fight today is going to be with my own team." Like, you think we'd all be on the same team, but it's clear that we're not. And I think yesterday, being down by San Fernando Cathedral, it's obvious that we are not on the same team. I mean, the police and the team were working very hard to try to outmaneuver Michael Hichborn yesterday, which was kind of funny. Mike's trying to put everybody in the same spot so that we can all have the maximum visibility when these so-called priests come into the San Fernando Cathedral. And then, of course, they blocked the pathways off so that we couldn't really be in front of the Archbishop either. And so he was racing back and forth, this Archbishop, in hopes of limiting his exposure to our banners and such. And I would say it was a little disheartening to realize that some of your greatest battles are going to be with the other members of the same church.
I mean,
instead of evangelizing.
It's been that way since the beginning. It's been that way since the Messiah was rejected by his chosen people and betrayed by one of his own men. A prophet is never welcome in his hometown. Like, it's always been that way. That's the thing. It's like, it feels shocking.
Not to this extent, though.
Yeah, not to this extent, but
yes,
but also,
exactly,
but yet to this extent, our Lord was literally handed over by one of his first bishops. So it's the prefigure that's the type of all of the hardest battles we're going to fight. Is the betrayal, by our own. Like, that's how it's always been. It'll be to some degree or another, depending, but that's kind of the type.
It's interesting, Joe was talking about how there's a reason why they're welcome here in this diocese, because they have a bishop here who is on their team, so to speak. I think that these priests would be much more suited and much more happy to go someplace like San Francisco, and they have never actually held one of their meetings in San Francisco, and you have to wonder why that is. And I think the answer is obvious, because they won't be met with open arms and embrace by the local ordinary there, and so you're onto something.
Isn't that something?
Yep.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that until just now. San Francisco. I mean, You would think that's where they want that is where they want their after party. That's for sure. But Corleone holding it down over there. Praise be to Jesus. Not letting them come in. That's good news indeed. I think it just emphasizes that there is a battle for the soul of Holy Mother Church, and this is why we feel very passionate about what we do. And there was a theme last night in the talks that we gave between myself, Jesse Romero, and you. We feel like there's an injustice that's going on the public stage that needs to be answered. And we can't just sit idly by and say nothing and hope for the best. So you've got to walk the walk and talk the talk. And, if our Lord got crucified by his own, then so should we, so to speak. So we have to be prepared for that. And I think most Catholics just aren't, if they're being honest, most Catholics aren't willing to go down that route, are they?
Yeah. No, it's very true. And I was telling somebody last night that the saints of antiquity longed to be with us in this day and age. They wanted to live to see the days that were foretold, which I think are the days that we're in now, because they saw great opportunities for grace here. And it also reminded me of, I think it was St. Anthony of the Desert, who was talking to some other monks, and they were asking him what the end of time would be like, or what the end of days would be like. And he told them, that man would be very weak, wouldn't be able to fast, wouldn't be able to hold all-night vigils. And they said, well, how can this be? Because they were doing it, and they were doing it fairly easily. Mm-hmm. And he said, we fight the devil chained, but in those days they will fight the devil unchained. And I think it's so true. You look around, and I struggle to fast. And I do fast, but I struggle to. I struggle to pull all-night vigils, or to even stay up late. Could you not watch with me 1 hour? That's me in a nutshell. And it's not easy. And I think that a lot of us struggle, and we find it very difficult. But for us, there's that operative word, is struggle. We are actually working to try and achieve a good. But when we look at the men that are here in this conference, and I think you used the word struggling with same-sex attraction at one point, they're not struggling. They're not fighting against their inclinations.
That's right. Yeah, they're making it look easy, aren't they? Yeah, they're just going for it. They're just jumping right in both feet. Yeah, it's pretty sad, isn't it? It's a pretty sad thing. Richard Corwin, thanks for being on the team. He mentioned the hootenanny. Good grief, I haven't heard hootenanny in a very long time. That's an old word right there, my friend. Thanks for being on the team today. Laura says, I definitely struggle. Thanks for the distinction, Laura. Making a good distinction there. You're definitely struggling. Hey, okay, Jake, I need you to explain what happened to Pope Leo. He got hit in the head with something like... Pope Leo, I saw you guys talking about this morning, and I saw 0 stories on this subject.
It's kind of, there's no stories because nothing bad really happened, but it was kind of a close call. He was out meeting and greeting the crowd, and a bunch of people were kind of piling on each other, pushing against a barricade, and he was kind of trying to, be friendly, but also calm them down, and someone tossed another item at him, another like stuffed toy or doll or something like that, a soft thing, but they tossed it at him, and he didn't see it coming, so it kind of hit him in the head, and he kind of like backed off and was like, okay, calm down, it's, like type of thing. And it was almost like come on, really, like, let's not do that type of thing. And the crowd was continuing pushing, and the barricade started to give way, and almost like people, so it almost like, people fell on top of each other. There could have been, probably not bad injuries, but there could have been minor injuries from that, I think, for sure. But thankfully the barricade didn't fully give way. So it was just kind of people getting way too overexcited, and really like the Pope's Secret Service, so to speak, is not really doing their job. That's been like multiple items keep getting tossed at him, and it's funny that he like is catching them one-handed and stuff, but this time he didn't see it coming. It just like hit him right in the head. And thankfully it wasn't anything heavy or whatever. Like no one was tossing a baseball at him or something. It was just a stuffed toy.
Maybe the White Sox need to bring him into spring training so that he can practice a little bit.
Well, no, it wasn't. He just didn't see it coming. Although the other two items he's caught one-handed, which is impressive. This was just, it just hit him. And I said earlier, like, If I had been hit in the head by something that I didn't see coming, I probably would not have reacted with the composure that he did. So God bless him for remaining calm.
Thankfully, it was a soft thing. Yeah.
But yeah, it's
when I was just there, I was there a month ago, obviously, and I remember thinking, like, I stood up on my chair because we were really close to him. And I was using my giant selfie stick with my Insta360 camera on the end of it. And I'm thinking, surely the Swiss Guard are going to talk to me about this giant selfie stick. And because I'm like waving the thing around and getting it closer to him, they didn't say anything to me about it. I was so surprised. I expected to be spoken to and didn't. And there's just so many people there. I don't know how you control that. He is incredibly exposed when he's doing these, St. Peter Square gatherings, because he's driving around in the cart. Now they're not stopping, they're moving and all of that, but there's many occasions where he is right up against that barrier. He is greeting folks, he's walking by or whatever, and incredibly exposed. So I think the fact that he doesn't get hurt more frequently is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Because the opportunity is high.
Yeah.
It's really high. So that's crazy. Hey, Patricia Parsons, good morning to you. Thanks for hanging out. St. Paul said he struggled day and night with temptation. He called it our old man. Yeah, he worked out his salvation in fear and trembling, though. Therein lies the difference, right, between St. Paul and what we're talking about with these priests in this AUSCP organization is, one, St. Paul will fight back against temptation, and these guys, though they don't even bother to fight back. That's what Michael was saying. They just embrace it wholeheartedly. There's a vast difference in those things. And I also agree that although we have always seen this struggle within Holy Mother Church from day one, I believe that the struggle is much worse now than it ever was in Holy Mother Church, for what Michael said so well and so clear, and that is the devil is off the chain. And the rebellion in so many bishops and priests, is really at an all-time high.
Leo the 13th saw it.
We have to fight the good fight here and pray, fast, and do penance. And it's more, I was also, very vividly reminded of this yesterday as we're holding our signs, to protest this group. And the priest comes to close the gate, and Michael immediately says, "We're praying for you, Father." It's like, that's a good reminder of checking our heart and our intent. Why are we doing this? Are we doing this just to be contrarian? Are we doing this just to be a thorn in their side? No, it's both and. It's because, and something I said last night in my talk was, if we don't pray for these men, who's going to pray for them? Yeah. No one, right? There's nobody to pray for these guys. And hell is real, and people go there for all eternity. And imagine if you go to hell with an indelible mark on your soul. How much greater are the punishments for a priest or a bishop in hell versus just an average lay person? So the need to not only resist their rebellion, but also to pray for them is really, really great. So we have to be about that. We have to check our hearts and our intents all the time. Jim Jessup, good morning to you. Says, I couldn't tell whether this was an interview or a monologue. Well, Jim, if you're just joining us, we're glad you're here. Let me explain something to you. We do an hour worth of radio show. It's live radio show broadcast on many radio stations in the Northeast and also on our partners across the United States. And then after that first hour, which is a radio program, we do what we call an Aftershow, which is just the live video stream, and we get a lot more casual. But also, you need to know, Jim, I'm not in my studio. I'm in a remote location here in Texas and Sanctus Ranch, and the internet where I am at is not great, so my feed is a wee bit janky. But Jake back in the mothership in Buffalo, New York, is holding it down, and Michael Hichborn, who is at the hotel with great internet, apparently. I should have just gone to the hotel. It would have worked out, but it's okay. God's will be done. So, Jim, welcome to the team, and thanks for hanging out with us. Alberto, our friend from the UK.
My internet's
good morning
not all
to you.
that great.
Better than mine. It's way better than mine. You actually have
I'm
live
looking at
video.
the screen. I'm looking at my screen. Everything is so pixelated. I feel like I'm playing like an old Nintendo video game. The words look more like symbols than they look like words.
I had that's my fault because I had to turn down the return internet just to try and give Joe a chance to even have any video whatsoever.
Ooh, look at this. Burrito Pizza Whale is back. Good morning. Thanks for hanging out. Says, you'll be happy to know I made pineapple pizza last night. Ooh, you are on the team. Welcome to the team. Praise be to God. A smart man, a man after my own heart.
I have a meme for
this. Making pizza with pineapple is the way to go. I love pineapple on pizza. I don't care what anybody says.
I have a meme for this.
Of course you do. Siobhan, thanks for saying it was still a great show. I appreciate that. Deborah, good morning, says, I struggle all the time. I once thought once I became Catholic that my addiction to chocolate would subside. Well, okay, first of two things here, Deborah.
The Lord doesn't force you to give up good things.
Number one, chocolate is God's preferred vegetable. Okay.
Exactly.
So let's just make sure we understand. Chocolate is God's preferred vegetable. It grows on a tree, cacao, or a bush or whatever it is. So it's definitely a vegetable. So there's no problem with that.
Proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy.
Yes.
100%. Exactly. But all things in moderation, right? That would have been the other thing. I forget what there was something else I was going to say. Now I totally lost it. Forgot it. Anyway, Andrea, good morning to you. What do you mean no pineapple on pizza? That pineapple's fantastic on pizza. Alberto, pizza and pineapple. Dark chocolate is good for you. It surely is. I love dark chocolate. It's wonderful. Stephen S., good morning to you. Pineapple pizza pride is as a sin. Is it really? That's funny. To be honest with you, I don't even get to eat pizza at all. But when I did, back in the day, I loved pineapple on pizza.
The memes in the Telegram.
Your husband is a chocolatier, Laura.
Ooh.
He's a man after my heart. Chocolate has magnesium. Magnesium is good for you. I take magnesium most days. Janice, chocolate has antioxidants. See, we're all agreed. Chocolate is wonderful for you. What is this? An Italian is forced to watch the first time pineapples added to a pizza. Brooklyn, New York, 1924.
Let's see if it'll show up on my phone here. So people can see it. Well, Michael won't be able to see it because the picture is too blurry. But Michael, it's a screenshot from Casino. But there's a pineapple being put on.
Yes.
There's a pineapple being put on the pizza.
That's great. Tim H., good morning to you. Says, my Italian friend tells me there is no such thing as a pizza with pineapple. It's not a pizza. It's flatbread. Listen.
Hey, you don't get to define pizza when another country is who perfected it, a.k.a. the United States.
Yes.
Come on.
And frankly, I've never had a pizza in Italy that I actually liked, ever.
Oh, by the way, did we discuss this on here, that pineapple on pizza was invented by a Greek guy in, Toronto?
That's awkward, but okay.
Seriously.
So here's a funny... I hear a lot of people complaining about putting fruit on pizza. Fruit doesn't belong on pizza. And they forget that the tomato sauce that they put on the pizza comes from a fruit.
Right, yeah. Exactly. Besides that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? Okay, listen, stop focusing on the details. Just get on the game plan here.
I'm just saying,
if Chicago pizza.
If you don't believe in mixing fruit and meat or whatever, and fruit doesn't belong on pizza, you can only say that if you're giving up cranberry sauce on Thanksgiving.
There you go.
Right?
Wow.
Yep.
I mean, we all know how perfectly cranberry sauce goes with everything else at Thanksgiving.
With everything.
If you're not willing to give that up, then you got to stop saying that fruit doesn't belong with meat.
My wife makes a fantastic cranberry sauce.
Ooh, homemade?
Homemade, yeah.
I think even if I was making homemade cranberry sauce, I would still mold it in the shape of the can with the ridges on it for serving, I think.
Get a plastic mold on Etsy or something.
It's still just that. No, you just use an old cranberry sauce can. It still needs to look like it came out of a factory. It has to have the traditional shape of cranberry sauce. Come on.
Yeah, you are very trad. That's true.
Yes.
Good.
The way that it looked in the original Thanksgiving. Right?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, it's too bad that Damon had to be banned from the Telegram group. That's really sad, considering he's one of our Plank owner, teammates here. But obviously he has violated the most sacred of our rules, and that is he has called pineapple an abomination on pizza. So goodbye, Damon.
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. I'm teasing, of course. Are olives
Ejected,
fruit?
cast into the outer darkness.
Are olives considered fruit because they grow on a tree?
What are olives?
I think they're a berry.
Berry? Probably a berry. That would have been my thought.
I like olives too, man. I love olives. Olives are great. I like mushrooms as well.
I mean, coconuts technically aren't nuts. They're drupes, I guess, is what I've been told.
So technically speaking, olives are a fruit.
Olives are a fruit. Okay.
Yes, because they contain the seed and they grow from a flower of a plant.
Okay. Cool.
Fascinating.
There we go.
Sleeping Lioness says now she wants to eat pizza. You made her hungry. That's funny. One of the points I was going to make earlier, and then I got distracted by chocolate, sorry, and then pizza, was, I find when I wrote my book on overcoming pornography addiction in 2014, I found when surveying men on the subject that most men aren't willing to fight that good fight. Like they don't even have that concept in their mind that they're going to do battle with temptation. They're not prepared to fight every temptation as they encounter it. And I go, that's part of the reason why you lose all the time is because you're not ready to do battle. When you get tempted, we're all going to be tempted. Everyone gets tempted. The temptations will come. It's what you do when they come. If you're willing to fight and you commit yourself to the battle every single time, and you do the things that are going to be necessary to overcome those, like pray, for instance, is one of those tools in your toolbox, you will win every time, no matter what your temptation is. Your temptation might be to eat too much chocolate. Your temptation might be to drink too much or to lie, to cheat, to steal, whatever your temptations are. If you are prepared to do battle with all temptations every time, and then you do the things and you've disciplined yourself to do those things, you're going to overcome it. It's not rocket science. It's really, really not. God is not going to give you a temptation that you can't get out of. You have to be willing to get out of it. And most people aren't. That's the reality. They're not willing to get out of it, A. And B, most people aren't willing to kill the thing that they say that they don't want in their life. They're not willing to kill that thing. They don't want it to overrule their life. They don't want it to have such a big impact on their life or their friends or their family, but they don't necessarily want to kill it. They kind of want it to just be dampened, but they still kind of really want it there. And back in the day when I used to like Father Larry Richards, back before he trashed me at a conference I spoke at, he used to talk about this, and I always thought he was spot on. You have to imagine this temptation, whether it's pornography or same-sex attraction or whatever, really doesn't matter. Think of that as a demon. Are you prepared to kill the demon? Most people aren't. They're just not. They're just not willing to do what is necessary to overcome these things, which is why you can't quit smoking. You want to, but you can't. Why not? Because you're not truly willing to kill that thing. And until you are,
Joe, it's interesting.
Just kidding yourself.
Yeah. About 4 years ago, I was asked to give a conference in Arizona, and I said, "Okay, happy to give a conference. What's the theme of it?" And they said, "Well, the theme that we're working with is Carthago delenda est." And I said, "Okay, wow. That's kind of an open that's an open discussion." So I thought about it, and I spent a long time.
Tell us what that means.
So Carthago delenda est is it's the Latin phrase that was spoken by Cato the Elder whenever he would give a speech in the Roman Senate, which loosely translated is and therefore I say Carthage is destroyed. And it's an interesting thing because this was before the Third Punic War, and when the Punic wars between Carthage and Rome started with the First Punic War, where Carthage and Rome fought, and Carthage actually owned the waterways. They were the largest naval fleet in all of the Mediterranean. They controlled all of the ports, and
this was before Scipio went and defeated Hannibal?
Yes, yeah. So this was the First Punic War. And so with the First Punic War, Rome developed a very large navy. They did not expect Rome to actually have an advanced navy that they would take over the Mediterranean with. And they destroyed, absolutely obliterated the Carthaginian navy, and they took over most of the ports. And in the Second Punic War, Carthage said, well, we can't invade Italy from the water. So that's when they sent Hannibal and said, okay, you're going to go in from Iberia, cross the Alps, and then come down from the northern part of Italy and then take Rome that way. Now, what's interesting is that as you look at the different things about the Punic Wars, you can glean certain spiritual truths, and you can say that there is a correlation to spiritual combat with the Punic Wars. In the first one, I compared the war over the waters with baptism. So the Carthaginians, who were truly a satanic civilization, would represent like what kind of demonic hold the devils have over the person before they're baptized. And then with baptism, the waterways are clear and they belong to the angels. They are, the flow of grace is now present. With the Second Punic War, it's the story of a soul who opens himself up to temptation, because the Romans secured the borders of the Iberian or of the Italian peninsula. And they said, okay, all of our borders are secure. We've got control of the waterways. The Carthaginians aren't getting in. So they left the north open. They just figured, well, we've got this natural mountain range, and that'll protect us. We don't have to worry about it. Well, what happened is Hannibal, after crossing the Alps, and you have to remember, there are no cell phones in this area, so they're not sitting there texting and going, oh, we've got an invasion, everybody go and fight them off. They didn't get word about the invasion until it was too late. But what happened was Hannibal crossed the Alps, and he started conquering little villages and recruiting the men and bringing them into the army and building and building and building until finally, by the time they got to Rome, they had a massive army, and they were able to quickly decimate the Roman military. This is akin to what happens when we get engaged in a habitual sin. And even if it's a venial sin, a habitual venial sin, and it starts with neglecting some particular area of weakness in the soul, some vice. So the Carthaginians, if they were to represent some sort of demonic force, working on the person, trying to get them to open up to a small vice that becomes a bigger vice that eventually becomes a mortal sin, which is the decimation of the Roman army. Well, Roman resolve, they collect their forces back up and they fight Hannibal and they push him all the way back off of the Iberian Peninsula, and then they then chase Hannibal through the northern part of Africa, and they conquer all of the Carthaginian areas all the way to Carthage itself, so that all that's left is Carthage. So then in my speech, in my third speech, I went into the Third Punic War, which was where Cato the Elder kept saying, therefore I say, Carthage is destroyed. He kept telling them in the past tense, it's destroyed, but we must do it. And this is where in the life of a soul, the individual person, having mostly conquered vice, has not conquered the imperfections and is still holding on to some preferred vice or some preferred, imperfection, where you really do have to go and to seek the life of perfection. You've got to weed it all out. You've got to destroy even that one vestige that you want to hold on to. So that's the nature of the Third Punic War, and that was what I said in my speech.
Yeah, and I think it helps in the spiritual combat if you also bring elephants over the Swiss Alps. Like if you can bring an elephant over the Swiss Alps, then you can pretty much win any battle if you're willing to fight it, right? Like therein lies Hannibal. And, he was unstoppable, Hannibal, in the Italian peninsula. And that's why Scipio went to Carthage to try to get Hannibal to leave Italy. That was the only way they were able to find relief. And it's a fantastic story, praise be to God. And I think a wonderful parallel to the spiritual combat. You have to be willing to fight. You got to be willing to fight to the death, I would argue. That was definitely the point in my book. You got to be willing to fight to the death to keep your mortal soul. Jake points out that every public event these days is a major fight for the custody of the eyes. A public event, just try to go to the airport sometime, for crying out loud. I do not understand females. Why do you women, when you have to fly on an airplane, feel you have to wear the least amount of clothing possible? What goes through your minds? I simply don't understand it. Like, it's such a battle to have to be in public most places. Yesterday, we were doing a rosary rally in front of San Fernando Cathedral, and tourists still coming in and out of the cathedral as they're downtown touring San Antonio. They go in the cathedral just to see it, and there was this one lady, she had almost no clothes on. Like, it was just so scantily clad. And you're just like, oh, Lord, help us. How do you go into a church dressed like that? You're not a believer. You're not whatever. Okay, great. But you don't feel any conscience on this issue? It's like there's zero going on in your heart or your mind about whether or not you feel it's appropriate to go into a church with hardly any clothes on. Like, that's bizarre. That lacks rationality. But yet that's the world we live in, because we don't have a sense of normal natural law thinking anymore. That ship has sailed in society. Burn, welcome and good morning, says, go to Target. You have to stare at the floor because the walls are covered. Good reason not to go to Target. It's part of the reason why I tend not to go to the mall. I try to avoid going to shopping malls for the same reason, or taking kids to shopping malls, because there's almost always posters or imagery or something that you're like, if you're just trying to go to the Lego store, for instance, well, you got to walk by all this other garbage to get there. Well, in my opinion, it's no longer worth doing that. So I try to avoid those things when and where possible. Burrito Pizza Whale says, it's the gym for me, man. Why the sensual dress in the gym where men's RPMs are you're talking about like revolutions per minute, like we're at 1,000. Yeah, that's another reason why I don't go to a gym. I have a gym in the house. So me and my sons, we work out at the house. I intentionally don't go to a gym for that reason. Well, that, and I just don't want to be, spending that money doing that. It's just insane. It's insane. Deborah says, I hate Target and going to the lake. We don't like it. Yeah, a couple of years ago, I was taking some of my kids camping, Garner State Park here in Texas. It's a beautiful park, wonderful hiking opportunity. It's on the Frio River. And we would try to go down to the deepest part of the Frio River. And of course, it's packed with people, and the scandalous bathing suits and such made it almost impossible to be there. So it's unfortunate. Like, we can't even enjoy that because you're fighting for against the mortal combat of your soul, just to try to go swimming with your children. It's really, really crazy. Zena, I wear a coat or a jacket on the plane and carry another one. Beaches kill me. I won't go back to Jamaica. Yeah. It's unfortunate, right? But that's the battle we're in. You have to be willing to fight the fight, though. And in men in particular, and I'm sure women have their own struggles, that women have their own combat. But for men, you got to be willing to fight that fight. You got to be willing to, every time, like you're grocery shopping, you're doing something innocent. You're not looking for trouble. You're just about your business. And then all of a sudden you turn a corner and then it's smack in your face. What are you going to do at that point? What will be your reaction? What I wrote in my book was, you need to decide well before that ever happens exactly what you will do when you are caught off guard and surprised. You will avert your eyes, you pray, you remove yourself from the situation. There's a whole host of things you can do when you are caught off guard in a situation that you are not prepared for, didn't expect, or anything else, didn't ask for. But you got to be willing to do those things. You got to be willing to fight. Sharon says, I love you guys dearly. Thanks for the spiritual boost this morning. I need to start my day. God bless you, Sharon. Thanks for hanging out today. Planes are cold, Jane says. That doesn't make sense. But yet women all the time, some of the yoga pants. As Holy Roman Emperor, I will be banning yoga pants on planet Earth, period. Okay. We will have no more yoga pants. I will send B-2 bombers just to bomb the factories that make yoga pants. It's unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. Becky says, my favorite line that I hear every single time, you don't want me looking nice and feeling good about myself. Good grief. Do you mean like is that a line that women say? This woman doesn't. I have to crack down on female students with dress code during school. Oh, that's what the students are saying.
Yep.
You don't want me looking nice or feeling good about myself. So let me understand this straight. You're saying that women, maybe young ladies, they only feel good about themselves if their clothing is skin tight or not at all? That is when they feel good about themselves? I don't understand. Modest behavior is still very beautiful, very pretty, very attractive.
Yeah, but these women don't understand that. They think that any attempt to control them is cracking down on them feeling good about themselves. It's really what it really is. It's lack of a spirit. It's pride. It's lack of a spirit of submission to doing.
But aren't they
the right
submitting?
thing.
Aren't they submitting to a culture that says they have to dress like that in order to get attention?
They're submitting.
Right?
They're submitting to their own temptation for attention.
That's my point. It's like they are being controlled. Like, in other words, in order to get my attention,
they're being controlled.
They're being
controlled by their own, by their own nature, by their own fallen nature. Just like just like a man addicted to porn is being controlled by his addiction to pleasure.
Female power crap.
Like that. That's the thing. Like it's not that this isn't their fault. This isn't someone else's fault. It's their fault. They're not resisting. Yeah. Like it's this is just like the abortion thing where it's like every abortion is a man's fault for pressuring a woman. Abortion is the majority of abortions are elective abortions. These are like women are choosing to go kill their baby out of convenience. That's the majority of abortions. It's the same thing with immodesty. It's the same thing with a lot of the nonsense fashion things that women do. They're doing it for attention and for their own gratification. Like men wouldn't notice if a woman, wasn't wearing high heels and was wearing flats instead, but a woman will still keep wearing high heels.
I don't understand high heels. Why do you women do that? Yeah. That's like a torture device that cannot be comfortable. That has to feel very uncomfortable. Why are you wearing these things? These things are ridiculous. I will also be banning high heels as holy women because, why do you? This is ridiculous.
You're not going to get You're going to lose the female vote if you ban high heels. Oh, Michael, we lost your audio. Can you refresh?
Too bad.
Yeah.
We're going to have to sign off here in a minute anyway, but we live in a strange world, don't we? By the way, Jane says in the Holy Land,
we
can hear you now. There was in the Holy Land there was a dress code. Interesting, when I was in Rome, they have dress codes there to go in and out of these churches, and I only on one occasion did I see them trying to enforce that. Only at one church, and it wasn't St. Peter's Basilica, it wasn't St. Mary Major, it was a different church. It was one of the smaller, out-of-the-way churches that I saw them enforcing the dress code. Otherwise, I saw lots of tourists that were not very well dressed in and out of those places. It seems like they're no longer enforcing that. I don't know why.
So, Joe, apparently my audio wasn't working when I made a comment earlier. You were talking about the young ladies that were barely wearing anything, flitting about the cathedral. And I said, well, look on the bright side. At least they're not tempting the priests.
Oh, dear.
Wow, that's terrible. You know what's bad is we would probably feel better if they did, right? Like we would feel like, at least they're heterosexual.
I always forget his name, but that Dutch martyr. Fornicator I always was, but heretic I never was. Died a martyr for the faith. He's a saint now.
Oh, man, that's terrible. Sci-Fi, good morning to you. Says, high heels used to be men's fashion. Women took it over when they realized the good they do for calves definition.
Well, that's just a fair trade-off because fedoras used to be a female hat that men took over. So,
I think that's revisionist history. I reject that.
It's true.
No, sorry. No, don't believe it. Not going to believe it. Fedora's always masculine and awesome and male. I refuse to believe it started with women. I just refuse. I don't care what
Carmen
Wikipedia
Sandiego
says. Carmen, stop. I don't want to believe
Carmen
it.
Sandiego.
All you have to do is watch
80s.
Casablanca to see how that was the original fedora, was the hat.
Why do you
that,
keep
she was
bringing
wearing.
up these things? We have to be stricken
Men
from the
took it
record.
over.
Do not listen to what Jake is telling you right now. I refuse to believe. I would rather live in ignorance.
Go with the superior Hamburg, fellas. Look like the Godfather.
Well, we're out of time here. Michael Hichborn, thanks for getting up early. You were up way later than I was, so it's going to be a long day.
Well,
for
I didn't
you
get
too.
in until 12:30 last night, so.
Oh, see, you're young. You can handle that. I'm glad it wasn't me. Michael Hichborn, again, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for inviting me down. Praise be to Jesus. It was great to be a part of this
Amen.
in some small way, and hopefully you can fan the flame of what you're doing. Make sure to check out the reportage on lepantoin.org. Share it with friends. Everybody needs to be aware of this stuff. The loudest and most, forceful voice against heterodoxy and error in Holy Mother Church needs to be a Catholic voice. Let's not leave it to the Protestants or the secularists to do our dirty work. That's up to us to do. And Michael Hichborn's leading the way. God bless you all. I'll be back in the saddle tomorrow. I think we have a book review to do tomorrow. I forget. I don't know. But God love you. God bless you. We'll see you there.